Before we actually get into the video, I want to talk to you guys about the OneFootball app. And actually, I'll put it on screen for you here, because for me, it's the best football app there is on the planet. It's great for team news, transfer news, player statistics, and a whole lot more. And also, on top of that now, if you are a resident in the UK or in Ireland, you get match highlights for La Liga, Liga Portugal, and the DFB Pokal. And also on top of that, you now get full coverage of the Indian Super League, which means you get match coverage and match highlights every single week. And then finally, on top of that, full Serie A coverage, including once a week you get a game which you can watch literally for free. Absolutely zero cost, nil, nothing, if you use the OneFootball app. And this week is Fiorentina at home to Inter, which I'm really looking forward to watching. And if you guys want to check it out, you can using the link in the description down below. Make sure to check it out and download the OneFootball app today. Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today we are talking about Manchester United's impressive 2-0 win over Tottenham Hotspur. And I say it's impressive because I thought this was United's best performance of the season by a long shot. This was probably United's best performance in a long time. And actually, it's up there with one of the most complete performances I've seen from any side really this season. So that's what I want to talk about today. But quickly, before that, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're racing towards 10k. I really want to hit it before the World Cup. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't. I really do appreciate it. But time to talk about the tactics, because Ten Hag pulled off a tactical masterclass. Erik Ten Hag tactically outdone Antonio Conte, and that is what led to Manchester United's win. So let's get into it. So early on in the game, for sort of the first 10 to 15 minutes, I thought that Spurs pressed a little bit higher than what I thought they were going to. However, there were issues in the way that they pressed, and this made life quite easy for Manchester United. However, United still deserve credit, a couple of players in particular. So, firstly we have the two wingers, Jadon Sancho and Antony, who done an excellent job of pinning the Spurs wingbacks back. Now typically in this sort of situation, if you're Spurs in this system looking to press, you would push your wingbacks all the way up onto the fullbacks here, and kind of go man for man with Manchester United in these situations. But Sancho and Antony done a good job of pinning them back, and also Conte clearly just didn't trust his wider centre-backs. This was a big problem for Spurs. United done well, but bad from Spurs initially, because now they have two players here pressing the two centre-backs, but the full-backs are completely free and David De Gea is completely free. Now Spurs could try and address that by Kane sort of pressing, but then one of the centre-backs would drop. United played out from the back incredibly easily, and De Gea deserves credit, I think, because his passing was much better than what we've seen from him for pretty much his whole career. He had a really good passing game, a really good game with the ball at his feet, and that set the tempo, and yeah, it allows United to build from there and play forward and dominate possession, and that is what we saw. So with the Spurs pressing structure being so poor, United progressed the ball forward really easily, and whilst the possession stats will have ended up being quite close in the end, Manchester United were in complete control of this game on the ball. And they've done this using a 2-3 shape in possession, with Casemiro sitting in between, Fred pushing higher into the half space, Bruno Fernandes pushing higher into the half space, the wingers holding the width, Rashford up front, and then Shaw and Dalot sort of taking it in turns to invert a little bit. So when the ball was down the left-hand side, Luke Shaw would play quite wide, more as a traditional fullback, and Dalot would tuck in a bit more, and then if United built possession down the right-hand side, Dalot would pull wider, Shaw would come inside. So firstly, good stuff from Ten Hag, because you can see Manchester United easily outnumbering these two Spurs forward, making life very easy. But more often than not, the possession was built down the left-hand side. We know that is how United play. United always do that. They prioritise his left side. I am just going to quickly interrupt because we do have another sponsor for today's video, and that is jerseyfifa.com. The website you need to head to right away to get yourself the latest and greatest football shirts, all at an extremely affordable price. The link will be in the description below, so head there right away to get yourself a great shirt, again at a great price. Now back to the video. Whilst this was a 2-3-5 shape, which I was asking for, this was a way more positionally fluid 2-3-5 shape than what we see from the likes of Manchester City, for example. When we look at Manchester City, yes, they do have player rotations, but it's very much De Bruyne in this area, Mahrez in this area, Grealish in this area, whoever it may be, personnel-wise. Whereas Manchester United was slightly more fluid. We would often see Bruno Fernandes popping up on the left, Fred would be on the right, sometimes they would both be on the left, sometimes they would both be on the right. It was more fluid. We know Bruno Fernandes and a lot of these players do like to drift towards the left-hand side, and as a result that is the side from where United built possession. But I thought they'd done an excellent job at pulling the Spurs defenders about. Now, one way that they've done this was simply give the ball to the winger and let him get 1v1 at his man. Exactly what I was asking for before the game. Now, did they do it enough? And this is maybe my one critique from Manchester United in this game. I still don't think the wingers went at their man quite enough. Anthony was better for it down the right-hand side, but I just think Sancho can still be a little bit braver on the ball. Although he did end up getting himself an assist, which we'll see later. A good performance from him, but I think he can do a little bit more still. This isn't me trying to target him or hate on him. It's me wanting to see the best of him, because I know how good he is. So that is one area where I would like a bit more improvement. But what we can see is that by building in this shape, United easily, for large periods of this game, really easily played through Spurs. And it was actually really impressive to watch. I think for me there were a couple of main reasons why United done this so well. One was the tactics, which we will look at further, but also I just think individually these players played a lot better than what we've seen in recent weeks. Actually, throughout the game I just thought that Ten Hag's players looked a lot sharper. They looked first to every ball. There were times when we would see a ball sort of go into the middle here, in towards Fred from deep, the player would come on his back. United were just far sharper there, and Fred would easily get round him. And actually, Fred, like several of these United players, was absolutely brilliant. But they just seemed sharper. United just seemed way sharper than Spurs, literally throughout the game. Fred and Bruno Fernandes was brilliant in midfield, as was Casemiro. United had a very sharp performance individually. But of course the tactics were important as well. And with United often overloading one side, with the fullback also tucking in, it dragged Spurs all the way across defensively. And this is where the importance of width comes from United's attack. Because when Spurs are getting dragged all the way over here, like so, with Bruno Fernandes over here, sometimes Fred over here as well, like I was saying earlier, very fluid, we can see Anthony now holding the width on the other wing. And it makes him an incredible outlet, an incredible isolation winger. Because you can ping the ball out to him and then he can get 1 versus Perisic. The other option is for Dalot to drive inside, which I thought he done brilliantly, making runs into this channel here, which then gives him the option to get on the ball. Quite a difficult pass, but it's still a good run from Dalot, because over time it then drags Perisic inside. Because Perisic knows that he can't just leave this channel of space for Dalot to walk into, so eventually Perisic has to come cover it. But now this gives Anthony more room. Now we're starting to see what is happening for this United team, more of what Ten Hag wants. Dragging players about the pitch in this way. The other option also, and probably the more frequent option, was for Dalot to hold a slightly narrower position here, but again it just allowed him to easily receive the ball from this side and then look to work with Anthony. And I just thought, throughout the game, United were just far better than Spurs. Ten Hag had to set up right in that 2-3-5, stretching the pitch incredibly wide, but then the sharpness of the players was brilliant, really, really brilliant. Like I said, Fred and Bruno Fernandes deserve a lot of credit in particular, but so do Casemiro, Dalot, Fernandes, I think I already said him, Rashford, Anthony, Sancho. They all deserve credit for what they were doing in these forward areas, and they just kept pinning this Spurs team back. For example here, even if Dalot did get the ball and then give it to Anthony and Anthony would then dribble inside, Dalot would still then make the effort to get round him. United were so brave in how many men they threw forward, and the reason that they were able to do that was because of how well they defended. And I thought United were brilliant on the ball, but I thought the way that they defended was incredible. Genuinely incredible, and it all came from intensity and sharpness. United were the first to every ball, and it was the way that they were reacting to losing possession. So at times in the past few seasons, we might see a United player lose the ball here, and the opposition just carry it forward, counter-attack and score. That wasn't the case in this game. United were far sharper and quicker to react and quickly win the ball back, quickly get round their men. They were quickly counter-pressing. United were also very impressive in the way that they pressed when Spurs were looking to build more sustained possession, for example from a goal kick. And in these situations, Spurs did change shape slightly. I always say that wrong. Ben Davies would move to left back, Perisic would push forward to pin Dalot, Dyer would move across, Romero would move across, and Doherty comes in. It's now almost a back four that we can see here. But again, United were extremely brave in the way that they pressed. Bissouma and Højbjerg were forming a double pivot, and Bentancur would push a bit higher. So what United done was essentially went with a 4-1-4-1 defensive shape. Casemiro being that initial one, the pivot, and then Bruno Fernandes and Fred pushing once again man for man on the Spurs midfielders. It's brave from United to push players forward and press like this. Also, Anthony's positioning was very important as well. So on this side, Sancho was pretty much man for Doherty. Anthony almost covered two players at once, which I thought was really impressive, because he would sort of sit in between Eric Dyer and Ben Davies. So if the ball does go over the top, he knows he can get back and cover Davies, but then if the ball goes short, he can cover Eric Dyer. So for example, even if it went short this way to Romero, Rashford could then push over, Anthony could then push over, onto Dyer, and now it makes it difficult for Spurs to play out. Now you might say, well, how about Bentancur? He's in space here. But no, Casemiro done a brilliant job of shielding in front of this defence. With United playing an incredibly high line, it reduced the space that he had to cover. It was much better. Now, there was still one way that Spurs were able to find a little bit of success through this United press, and it came when Antony just got his timing a little bit off. So I was saying that he was covering these two players and kind of squeezing in on Eric Dyer when the ball went short. The issue was when he got his timing wrong and he went too early, because this meant that Ben Davies was now the free man and the ball could go over the top. And Dalot can't really come out and engage him because Perisic is there, pinning him back. So this was the one time that Spurs were able to get forward. Davies would then have room, and then we would see Son and Harry Kane, or one of the two I should say, dropping deep into feet, turning and then looking to play the other one. We know that is how they play. They nearly always do it, right? That's how they play in these big games. But the aggression of the Manchester United centre-backs was absolutely brilliant. They didn't give them a second's time to even think about what they were going to do with the ball, let alone actually releasing it. Varane was always touch tight on Dalot, and Lisandro Martinez, the job that this man done on Harry Kane was absolutely incredible. In Harry Kane, we are talking about one of the best strikers of all time. Lisandro Martinez genuinely silenced him, apart from probably 2 moments, but that's when Kane weren't Lisandro's man. He was absolutely brilliant, and it was the aggression of these United defenders which allowed them to play with such a high line. They were also helped by the fact that David De Gea was sweeping a little bit better than what he normally does, so if the ball did go in behind, De Gea was there on a couple of occasions to sweep up behind the play. And what this done was it allowed United to be really aggressive, and that was what it was. Tactically, they were very well set up. Ten Hag got the tactics spot on. But individually, as footballers, they were all very aggressive and very intense with the way that they played, and that was the reason that United won this game. Let's have a look at the goals. Let's look at literally how they won it. So here is the first goal here, and the first thing we're going to see is that it comes from aggression from Lisandro Martinez. Heung-min Son, the ball goes long to him. Lisandro Martinez reads it, gets there, is aggressive, jumps and wins the header. Puts United on the front foot, and this is what he done literally all night long. He heads it down, and it falls in this area to Eric Dyer. Eric Dyer takes a poor touch, and then it falls to Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes gets on the second ball well, carries it forward, and then goes wide to Antony. Antony cuts in, plays the ball to Sancho. Sancho lays it off. Fred has a deflected effort into the back of the net. Now, it's not a particularly special goal. Tactically, it weren't particularly special from Ten Hag, but it came from this. Lisandro Martinez being extremely intense in the way that he defended. Really intense, really front-footed, really aggressive, and it put United on the front foot constantly throughout the game. It was brilliant. For the second goal, it was slightly different. It was more of a Manchester United transition, something that they didn't actually get to do that often. But when they did, they got it right, and we can see Antony coming inside with the ball here. He gives the ball to Bruno Fernandes, who kind of goes into this 50-50. It ricochets to Fred. Fred's touch is not great. Drops to Bruno Fernandes, whose finish is absolutely brilliant. Now, we could look at those two goals and say they were perhaps a little bit fortunate in the way that they came about, and I think that is what Ten Hag was talking about after the game, when he said that this was a brilliant performance, but he wants better. And I think that's absolutely the right response. United were very good in this game, but I do think they still need to, at times, have better selection in the final third. It's not suddenly like, oh, United are fixed, they're brilliant, they're perfect, they're ready to conquer the world, they're going to win the title. That's not the case. United still get into situations where they need to take the extra touch, the extra pass to play Dalot on the overlap, for example, rather than shooting from areas like this. That is something that United still need to work on. However, I did think that for large periods of this game, they were absolutely brilliant. Ten Hag set them up perfectly in that 2-3-5 shape, gave them the platform to really succeed in this game, but the players do deserve credit, because to a man they were all absolutely brilliant. Now, I dare say some people might criticise Marcus Rashford up front because he missed a couple of good chances, but I think it all depends on the way you look at it. You might look at it as in he missed a few chances. I look at it as he was playing out of position, because for me he's not a striker, yet he didn't give these defenders a second of peace. He was constantly chasing them, harrying them, putting them under pressure. His movement was brilliant, getting into different positions. I just think overall United had a really good game, and this is now a great platform for them to build from. Will they build from that? We'll have to wait and see, but I think what we saw in this game, hopefully those idiots that don't think Ten Hag is good enough, hopefully they now understand, because Ten Hag is the man for this Manchester United team. Give him time, keep giving him the resources, you will see it. Ten Hag is the man to bring Manchester United back to where they want to be. But yeah, that's all I've got to say on the video. Ten Hag got it spot on, the players got it spot on, Spurs were poor, Manchester United win. That's that. Thank you guys for watching, I hope you have enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.